Þorbjörnsson, Albert skorar! Albert Gunnarsson hefur skorað. Ragnar Bergjesson og skoðamark! Glæsilega gert! Óskar Rafn á móti Bjarna. Og Bjarni með góða sendingu fyrir og það aftur Ingólfsson!
Hello and welcome to a very special bonus episode of the Bestapod ever. It's just me here, Tryggvi. Yeah, summers are a little difficult in terms of scheduling. Ragnar is getting a very well-deserved break. But we thought we should get something out now before the next round of games because just so much has happened. You'll have to excuse the sound quality if it's worse because Ragnar is the sound editing whiz. So I'll try my best, but I'll try to make it short instead so you don't have to put up with too much of my incompetence. If we start with the most boring part of this, we can start with the only league game that happened between our last recording and now, and that's Fylkir Fram 0-0 in the rain. Man of the match, I felt, was the camera operator who had to wipe the lens for water every few seconds or so. Try to time it so that in between not being able to see anything and the very few chances in this game, they did a really great job. The game was not up to much else. That's kind of the highlight of the game. And Rúnar Kristins said the only thing the managers will be happy about this game is that they neither conceded a goal. The wind and the rain had a lot of effect on this game, and it just turned into a ridiculously boring game. And I'll have to agree with him on that. So I think we move on quickly because there was a lot of other stuff that happened. If we just quickly go through the European games that happened on Thursday. I mean, we talked about Breiðablik getting eliminated by Drita earlier in the week, but on Thursday the last three games were played. Stjarnan lost 4-0 to the team that neither of us can pronounce that well. I'll give it a try. Bestadeildin. Apologies. This was the game that maybe we had a bit of faith that Stjarnan could see out. They had a lot of injuries. We knew that, but they had been able to rest a few of them. Emil, for example, in the league game against Ia, and so we were hoping they could sort of see this game out, but that did not happen. It was a bright and okay start in the beginning, but then two not own goals but goals that Stjarnan sort of gifted them on a silver platter, and just a bit of a collapse there, unfortunately. So Stjarnan are out of Europe. Another unfortunate loss with similar scorelines. St. Mirren 4, Valur 1. Similar sort of play-by-play. St. Mirren were the better team, deserved winners. Valur had a few chances. Tryggvi Hrafn scored from a penalty, and Valur out. And we will get to what that means to some people in a few seconds, but let's talk about Víkingur quickly. They came back with a very, very great comeback from them in Albania, the second comeback in Albania for an Icelandic team in Europe this season, beating Agnatia 2-0. Aron Elís was back, which I think made a huge difference. He was greatly missed last season in Europe. He came in a bit late, and this season has been injured in the European games. And I think this is this is not a controversial statement to say, but he makes such a big difference. And he scored one of the goals in the first own goal, slightly comic own goal. He was already there in the box as well, and especially with them missing Nico Hansen, this was immense having him there, and it's a great win. And now they play Flora Tallinn. So they're in the champions route of the Conference League, which makes, in theory, Yeah, I mean, it makes their route to the group stages a little bit easier. Like, they're not going to meet the likes of FC Copenhagen or teams like that. But there are still tough teams. You know, Flora Tallinn have made it to the group stages of Europe before. If you sort of go through their qualifying campaigns of Euro, it's been mixed results. But you know, they have it in them. They beat Kauer back in 2020, I think it was. Back when football was a little bit weird. They beat them in a sort of one-legged qualification round in Estonia. So not a team to be taken lightly, especially given this was Vikingur's first ever away European win. Yeah, they do not have the pedigree in Europe, I guess, to be cocky about this. But they have a chance. It's not impossible. Let's see. We have one European team left. We'll know more on Thursday. Let's go back to the Valur game. The big news out of that game, apart from being eliminated, but I guess it may be a bit less of a shock. But the shock was that on the way back from Scotland, or basically right after the game, right before they got on the plane, Arne Gretarsson was informed that he had been relieved of his duties. In the same statement on Thursday evening, they announced that Serdan Tuvecic, I need to also brush up on that pronunciation. In Iceland, we call him Tuva. That's his Icelandic sort of nickname, but we need to learn how to pronounce his real name. So he was announced as the new Valur manager. No stranger to the Icelandic game. He has been here before. He'd been at Valur before. He was the assistant of Heimir Guðjónsson back in 2020 when Valur last won the league. He's gone. After that, he went to Sweden, coaching Östers and Skövde. And you know, I think we talked about it a few weeks ago that he decided to quit in Sweden to move back to Iceland for family reasons. So we expected to see him in a job, maybe not in the Valur job, but yeah, it's exciting to see him, see a semi-new name, and a name we haven't at least seen around too much as a head coach. But yeah, I don't know what to say. I was talking to Joe a little bit after the European games, or like right before the Valur game was finished, and we were sort of at that point we were talking about that maybe this is the end of Arne Gretarsson. Maybe at the end of the season they'll decide this is the part of the road, and then, you know, an hour later or something, 30 minutes later, they announced this. I think the general mood around the commentary that we've read is that this was kind of due, perhaps, the Fram game the few days before really didn't help, and it seems like from the talk that we've heard that the Fram game was the final straw, and barring, I guess, a miracle in Scotland, that was maybe the end of Arnar already back then. You could argue by the timing whether firing him there, sort of, some people have said firing on the plane back home. I think, you know, it was done a little bit before that, but that's not a super comfortable ride for him. Maybe he could have waited a few more hours until the next morning, but we'll have to digest this a little bit and see what the legacy of Arne Gretarsson at Valur is. I think there's been a lot of negative talk. You know, it is a difficult job. But it hasn't quite been good enough, and I think the Fram game was a bit of epitome of a lot of stuff that's happened at Valur the last 2 years, where it just didn't seem like the defensive play wasn't as good, and that's something he was known for at Kawa, to have a really solid team that was impossible to beat, especially at home. And then you saw this Valur team, and it was the Fram players did really well, but they were walking through that defense. And then, you know, they had all the ball, theoretically all the chances, and Ólafur Ísson did do really well. He had one fantastic save from Gylfi, I think, but they also didn't seem like they were going to score 3, never mind 1. Yeah, but we have to digest this a little bit, and we'll definitely talk about this with Ragnar when he's back next week after the next round of games. The next round is actually Valur Kawa, which is interesting. Yeah, we'll see how everyone bounces back. But a very interesting appointment. We can't wait to see Serdan, see what he brings to this team. But this was somehow, maybe it was the biggest, I don't know. It was definitely one of the huge piece of news on August 1st. We had So we had Anna Greðarsson, and that was the last piece. Before that, we'd had 2 players returning to Iceland, or semi-returning to Iceland. So you had Aron Einar Gunnarsson. If you don't know that name, you've definitely seen him. If you've seen any pictures of the Icelandic national team, he's the guy with the beard leading the "Who" clap. The Icelandic captain for years, and but it's been a bit out in the club wilderness. He was in Qatar, a lot of injuries. He's not been a huge part of the national team recently. So he signs with his boyhood club Thor in Akureyri. They are chasing promotion at this point. He says that he doesn't mind if they don't reach it. He'll still play with them next season in the first division, but I think this will give him a huge boost. We'll see if it's enough. He has said that there's a chance that he might move on loan for the winter to abroad, where teams like Kortrijk in Belgium, where Freyla Alexandersson as a manager. So that's a possibility. He is also, mid-30s, has a lot of injuries, been in Qatar for a while, so let's see what opportunities come. Maybe if it's a loan deal to Belgium, maybe, Freyr would take some character like that to play just a handful of games, because we don't know exactly what sort of physical state he's in, or if he's capable of playing 20 game seasons or more. But we might see him in the Bestadeildin next year with Thor. That would be quite the fortress there up north, and especially the derbies, the Akureyri derby, Thor against Kawa would be huge. So in that sense, it would be quite fun to see. The other returning legend, Alfred Finnbogason, but not in the way that you would assume. So he will stay as a player in Belgium, in Eupen. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. At least for the time being, that's what it said in the statement. But he has also been hired as a technical advisor at Breiðablik. So there was a lot of talk about this might happen. It just seemed a little bit odd that, because he wasn't making noises about retiring, so it seemed why would he sign this now? But he's doing a dual role. I wouldn't be that surprised if he signs with Breiðablik as a player. Maybe not this summer, maybe in the winter. He hasn't had the best of times in Belgium so far. He signed from Lyngby in January, and it wasn't the greatest half season. We didn't really play that much, to be honest. And then, we'll see if he can get on the pitch and play. Then he'll probably stay. But if he's still on the bench or he gets maybe more injuries or something, I wouldn't be that surprised if he maybe just calls it and is maybe even plays a few games for Breiðablik next season, maybe this season. I would be a bit surprised. It would be a bit of a U-turn, but we'll see. He's a fantastic player. Started his career at Breiðablik and very quickly got moved abroad. So we haven't seen him for a while in Bestadeildin. So it would be nice to see him for at least a few minutes. The other piece of huge news, which was maybe to be expected, so maybe not the biggest surprise, but Kawa came out with a statement, and that was the first piece of news of the day, that Paul Mirab, the current interim or sort of manager this season, would be stepping up into the role, this sort of the chairman role, CEO role, and the director role that Bjarni Guðjónsson had left earlier this year. But he would be doing that at the end of the season, so he would see out his contract as manager of KR throughout the season. But to assist him as manager, Óskar Hrafn would be not stepping down, but sort of stepping sometimes down from his office as director of football to help him coach the team. So he would become like a second assistant with Vigfús Arnar. And he had his first training session on August 1st, I think, or August 2nd. That's not all. Óskar Hrafn will then take over permanently as manager at the end of the season. So I guess Óskar Hrafn is coming in to help with the relegation battle, which seems insane, but that is the truth for KR at the moment. So he'll be helping and try to keep KR in the top division. And then from next season, he will be the permanent manager. Maybe not a surprise. I think a lot of people were expecting it, but he has said throughout, and he even said in interviews after this appointment, that he didn't really have any interest in stepping back into the managerial sort of seat again. although he later admitted that he knew that this was not a permanent decision. He would return at some point. He loves it. I think he's just basically said that he's doing this out of love of KR. KR have called on him, and he's answered that call. He said he's always dreamt about coaching KR, and this is a huge opportunity for him. He's a man with strong opinions, but he's also the director of football, so I guess in that sense he'll just have to answer the Palme, potentially, or if he just gets free reign, we'll see. We've already talked about there's already been moves for next season. Alexander Helgi for Breiðablik that Oscar knows from Breiðablik has been signed for next season. They've signed the two FA players, Kirði Hrafn and Ásbjörn, for next season. This week it was a few more people announced, or one person was announced. Hjalti Sigurðsson from Leiknir has also signed. He's also another ex-KR player. Another player that KR have contacted is Oliver Torlasius of Fjölnir. The Fjölnir have announced that KR have officially asked for permission to speak to him about his contract ending. And then, the last rumor is Sveinn Gísli from Víkingur is apparently on the wish list, maybe for already this summer. Óskar Hrafn has said that they want to bring in someone in this summer because it's a very thin squad. But he also said he doesn't want to bring in somebody just to solve the next few weeks. He wants to bring in someone that would be used in the squad for the next few years. So Sveinn Gísli would be someone to fit that mold. But we'll see. Sort of when asked about why they want to bring in so many homegrown players, he feels any team needs a bit of a balance between needs a core of homegrown players to bring through the identity of that team. KR have lacked that, and we spoke a lot about that last season. That KR have not always been great at that. There's been a lot of youth team players that have been disillusioned with the way the pathway to the first team has been sort of blocked, and that's why all these players they're being linked with now, these are players that played a few games, especially in the youth team, maybe were once or twice on the bench and, or a lot of times on the bench, but never really played that many games. And then they had to go elsewhere and did really well. Like you had Ásbjörn, for example, was a big example that had to go to Keflavik, I think, and did really, really well, and then went to FO and has done fantastically. So he'll be a huge signing, but it's one of those players that maybe we shouldn't have to sign back. He should have just stayed, and we should have given him the opportunity to grow. It's gotten better at KR. We've seen that especially last year with Rúnar. I'm sure partly out of necessity that he's brought some of these younger players through, but he did do that, and then it's continued a bit this season. And Óskar Hrafn will do everything in his power to continue that, hopefully in a bit more of a sort of on purpose manner. It's felt a little bit sometimes that it's done out of sheer panic and necessity, but we'll see. So that was the insane, crazy day. In terms of, there's not that many other news. I think maybe the two other things is IA has signed Marvin Darri from Vestri on loan as sort of a backup goalkeeper to Árni Marino. He was being linked to sort of first division teams where he would get to play, so it seems a bit odd that he's going to IA to sit on the bench. So maybe he is kind of really challenge Árni, but Árni's had a really good season. So it seems a little bit odd that he's going to IA from one bench to another, but we'll see. Maybe there's method in his madness. The news from Fylkir is that there's no news. Rúnar Páll has come out and says that, if I'm to be completely honest, it's just not going anywhere. We've tried, but nothing's worked. We'll see what happens. We're being patient. We want players to be patient on the pitch, so that's what we're going to be doing off the pitch. It would be great if we could strengthen the team a bit. I think we spoke about it before that they really need some strengthening. They're getting some people back from injury. Daði Ólafsson was another one. He's returned to Fylkir in that dreadful game against Fram. He was, I guess, the brightest spot out of that game. He returned after about a year and a half of injury. So they are getting these sort of players back, but we also don't want to rush those sort of players that have had a lot of injuries back too much and play them too much. So it would be great if they could bring in someone who could just hit the ground running and play a lot. And then if we do the listener question, we sort of asked before the European round, who do you think is likeliest to make it the farthest in Europe? So 50% says Stjarnan, 50% said Valur. So you were not quite on the money there. But to be fair, if you'd asked us before this, I think maybe we did say it on the podcast, I don't remember. But I think Stjarnan was the team we expected to go forward, and Víkingur was sort of a maybe, and Valur we weren't quite sure after that fun performance, and it turned out we were right in that sense. But I think Stjarnan, we were a little bit surprised they didn't put up more of a fight. But I think I will leave it there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Like I said, we will be back after the next round of games, which starts already on Monday. They moved the FO Víkingur game to Monday because of the European commitment, so they'll be playing on Monday the 5th of August, which is a bit of an anomaly because it is, like we spoke about, this Vestlunamannahelgin, this commerce weekend, this 3-day weekend that's kind of sacred in Iceland, and usually, or I don't know, maybe some historically minded listener can tell us, but definitely in recent times they have not played games on this weekend. It's a bit of a last resort, and you can see the scheduling is piling up. So if FO Víkingur on Monday, then you have KA Valur on Tuesday from Stjarnan, Breiðablik, Fylkir all on Tuesday, and then Wednesday you have Vestri and KR. And we'll be back after those games, and then the European game on Thursday to talk about everything what happened, digest a little bit more all these news. But we just wanted to come and run through some of this craziness with you. Yeah, follow us on Twitter and Instagram, or Twitter X at Besta English. We're trying to be a bit more active on both. We have a lot of little polls and ways for you to engage, and we would love for you to reach out to us if you have any questions or wanna engage with us off on the pod or off the pod. But yeah, until next time, thanks for joining me, and bless.